Hey and welcome, msKIRAspeaks. Before we get started, I ask that you watch the videos till the end, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. Your girl is going to be tired tomorrow, so let's get right into it. We're here for another episode of Power Book 2 Ghosts Season 2, Episode 3, titled The Greater Good. So as the episode opens, we see Tariq. He we hear sirens in the background. He's walking towards a hotel, and it turns out it's a celebration for Tate's brother's promotion to investigator in the DA's office. And the two laugh and they joke and they cheers to Kamal. And I totally forgot that Tate used to be a cop too. So Tariq comes in, and one of the guys is like, he makes a comment about him being in the wrong place. And he says that Tate is his uncle. Tate comes up, he says, he needs his connections to get someone from child services to speak to him. Tate says he's gonna need a little quid before he can talk to me. So they discuss that, Brayden Weston is his roommate, and Tate asks, how well does he know Rick Sweeney? I love when we're on the same side of a question. Of course, he wants Tariq to use his relationship with Brayden to get info on Sweeney. He's got something that belongs to him, a congressional seat. So Tariq wants to know how he's supposed to do that. Don't sell yourself short. We both know what you're capable of. He's going to help him on credit, and he'll get him back with interest. Tate tells him to go down to CPS in the morning, and he'll make sure they see him. So Monet meets up with Kane. They're waiting for Tariq. When he shows up, he asks what Kane is doing there. And Kane found the new connect, so we're all back in business together, and they need to squash their past beef. You trust him again, Tariq? He's asking Monet. She's like, I need product, so do you. What's best for us all? The greater good. Power. The title of the episode is the theme, and they are going to hit us with it. So she tells Kane not to be effing with how Tariq does his business, and he agrees, but he needs his money up front before Monet speeds off. She has no idea. These two, they're not cool. They got one eye on each other, but they're not beefing. So Kane asks Tariq if he framed the teacher yet. He's like, they're good. A few more words. Kane is out. And he says, all of this I do for this family, and they can't even give me a ride. And that's for the fans that keep insisting that Tariq needs a car. Touche. So Kane is at Mecca's place, and he's having a get-together for his boy, Nuff. He's gutting the pigs. The whole issue is just weird. So Mecca introduces the two, and he gets a call, so he has to go. And the chef tells Nuff to close his mouth while he chews. A few folks have a theory about Chef. We're going to wait and see how that plays out. So now Nuff asks Kane how he knows Mecca, and he lets slip that Mecca went to Kuwait. Chef is annoyed, and Nuff is, he's talking loud, he's talking too much. He calls the dancers over to shut him down. Now, not for nothing, Mecca was talking about a little guap, but Nuff does not see much better. So the two sit and they enjoy some drinks and some dance, and Kane calls out Mecca, and Nuff is like, don't worry about him. He's been a lost cause since he got to New York. He's got a hard on for some B. That B would be your mom, Kane. And I question Mecca's intentions. So before he can get another word out, Mecca comes up and chokes him. Don't you know there's a difference between my business and family business? He takes him offline. Oh yes, chokes him until he passes out. Kane looks concerned. Between that and the way he took that gun from the guy in episode 1, the Kuwait is coming out of Mecca, and I suspected the first episode that he was military trained. Excuse my voice. I hate to clear it on camera. Detective Kevin still has Zeke at the station, but he's not under arrest. Zeke tells him he has practice. He's talking to Zeke and asking him all types of silly stuff, and he asked if he knew Jabari Reynolds, and he's like, no, he wasn't my advisor. He slips and calls Carrie by her first name, and Kevin asks what's the nature of their relationship. That's it. She's my advisor. He asks for his phone call and says he needs to talk to his aunt. And this is where our boy Zeke should have stopped talking. Instead, he threatens him about, this is going to threaten his draft prospects. So Kane wakes up. He's still at Mecca's. Mecca's working out. He tells him that Nuff put the product in his car, but Guap told him that they took their product off the street. So how are you going to sell my shit? He explained Monet wants the business to stay under the radar. She ran into some Steve Urkel ass N-word at Stansfield. So Mecca's like, oh, well, what's your problem with him? He's like, at first he tries to play it off, and then he says, he doesn't know what he's doing up there. So he doesn't trust him. Mecca asks his name, and at first Kane says nothing. And then Mecca gets the attitude talking about, he doesn't work for people who don't trust him. He showed him his whole life and his people's. I call bullshit, because Mecca has not given Kane any info. He has all the info, but Kane does not know anything about this fool. And I wonder what he's gonna do when he finds out that Mecca knows Monet and did not tell him. So Kane folds under pressure and gives him Tariq's name. And he says, you need to be able to control him, and I can help. So the lady at CPS, she gives Tariq 15 minutes. He wants Yaz with him. He asks if he gets an apartment, can she stay with them? She's like, you need a stable job, proof of income, a clean drug and criminal record. He's like, I can do all of that. She says, you can even get this meeting on your own. Money and influence can buy a lot of things, but it can't buy what's good for a child. And there they go, dropping that influence again on us. So Kevin is still over here with Zeke, and Zeke's like, I don't know nothing. He needs to practice. Kevin says, he's free to go at any time. And Zeke points out, like, you keep saying that, but you got my wallet and my phone. And I wonder why he didn't text Monet, like, somehow when Kevin showed up on the way or something. So Kevin is really harassing this boy, and he hasn't really asked him about much except for Carrie. Speaking of Carrie, she's in class with Tate. The topic is Jeremy Bentham's theories on utilitarianism. Tate wanted to take the lead on this one. Is there an objective greater good? We're going to be hit with greater good all episode 2. And he's talking about being for the people. And Professor Milgram jumps in and points out that the act is purely in service for your voting base or potential voting base. It negates its subjectivity. One of the students says that what keeps the many happy is objectively the greatest act. And Bruchandra points out that slavery was promoted as being in the interest of many. In the interest of the many. And another student, he attempts to defend the point, and he says we have to leave room for moral evolution. And Lauren says it sounds like slight justification of slavery, assuming we all operate on the same moral code. So Professor Milgram asks Lauren, you don't think there's a basic moral code which we adhere to that informs the overall greater good? No, she does not. And I always say I'm going to scale down my notes, make my reviews shorter, and then we consider classroom scenes, and I'll be like, oh, ooh, ooh, ooh. So they go back and forth a few more points, and then Tariq jumps in and assists Lauren. In leaving room for virtue, you often risk missing an objectively greater good act. Sometimes, if you don't eliminate the concept of morality, you risk everybody taking a loss. How is that in the interest of the greater good? And Tate asks, are you really saying there's not a single good outcome you'd rather risk just to preserve your virtue? Kevin is still interrogating Zeke. He suggests Jabari found out about them, and Carrie had him killed to shut him up. Honestly, Kevin is really not that serious. It's really not. Zeke says there's nothing to find out. Kevin brings up, oh, we used to work together. Very generous, and she enjoys it too. And my question is, why is he on the case? Since you were previously involved, is that not a conflict of interest? So he says, he has never been one. No, that Carrie has never been the one to focus on one guy, and he at a time basically, and he drops the dime that she and Jabari basically have gotten back together, that they've been together, they've been involved recently. a few months ago up until he died. He was jealous over someone else she was seeing, and he asked if he was with her the night that Jabari disappeared. And then Carrie calls him. So Zeke denies being with Carrie when Jabari was killed. Kevin still does not let him go. After a quick conversation with Tate, Tariq runs into Lauren in the hallway and she apologizes for leaving the other night. She says she feels like he's always preoccupied, and before he can explain, his phone rings. It's Bash. He tells him he needs a legitimate paycheck. No problem. They'll form a new LLC and run a paycheck through it. He'll need someone to sign on as president, of the corporation, and $30K down payment. Yikes. So Tariq and Brayden, they meet up with Kane. Kane gives him the product and says, because they joke, Brayden and Kane joking back and forth because he's calling him white boy. He was like, we spent time together, blah, blah, blah. It was funny. Anyway, so he's basically like, when you were Machine Gun Kelly F up Monet's business, he's taking it back to the streets. And Brayden's like, that's an option? No, not for Tariq it is. So when Kane falls off, we see Mecca was watching. Brayden takes Tariq to the rooftop location that Lauren had showed him. And he's put up, he set it up to use a QR code to access the lockers that look like bricks. Every tutor has their own code. Product in, cash out. Only Brayden and Tariq have the master QR. One location for everything, and they can expand anybody anywhere. No one will know it's them. And it's some real cool MacGyver type ish. It's kind of cool, but I think that they needed more than one location, like a separate location maybe for the drugs and the cash. And will the QR codes be traceable if something happens? And I feel like it's too many hands, which could potentially be a problem, but those are just my thoughts. You put your thoughts in the comments. So Mecca rolls up on Kane and he tells him Brayden is his way in. He's known Tariq for years. How does Mecca know that? He's hype, easy to control, so that's perfect for them. You want to run Tariq, you need to cut him at his soft spot, and Brayden is it. You need to get Brayden in your pocket. So here we go. Monet, she is Googling Mecca or Dante Spears. When Diana comes in and asks if Lorenzo knows Kane's back, she gives her an attitude. And it's like, you want more responsibility? And then she hands her something and tells her to go deal with her father. So Tate is barking up Professor Milgram's tree again when Detective Kevin comes flying in and he asks for a minute. So Rashad excuses himself to snoop in the hallway. Detective tells Carrie that he has Zeke at the precinct, and he tells her he said that they have a professional relationship and that he wasn't with her when Jabari was murdered. Your alibi is up in smoke. You must have confused him. This is personal, and you want to pin this on me when me and Zeke don't have anything to do with Jabari's murder. I know what you're capable of and the things that you can get a man to do. This is what Kevin says. He won't rest until he puts cuffs on the both of them. Child, Detective Kevin is suppressed. So Diana goes to visit her dad, and her Spanish is on point, y'all. He asks what she's doing there. She gives him whatever it was that Monet gave to her. I still didn't figure out what that was. He asks what's going on. He was expecting to see Monet. They have important business to discuss. And she's like, she's taking on more work, and asks if he knew about Kane. Of course he knew about Kane. It was his idea. Business is busy. He knows Kane's been an F up, but family always comes first. So basically he says, they're strongest when they're together. They hug and everything. So Mecca has shut down a whole restaurant to have lunch with Monet, and I'm annoyed. I mean, did she even wait a day to call him? Okay, Monet. So he calls her Nene. She's like, don't call me that. That wasn't my mom's house where you turned over those cans. I have kids. I mean, they're adults. They're darn near adults, but that's creepy. And she was not bothered that he knew where she lived. So he runs down her whole life, and she does not blink an eye. It's been 24 years and not a word. Why now? So he apologizes. He said he got roped up. It wasn't supposed to go down like that. He's finally the man that she said he could be, and he felt like he couldn't come back to them. She's impressed, and she's done her research, and apparently he's into import and export. She's like, she's got to go, but he wants to take her somewhere. Blah blah. So excuse me, y'all. It's Becky. A major sports site is going to pay her stupid money for the video footage of Zeke getting arrested. Lauren tells her she cannot sell that. How do we know Zeke is okay? Thank you, Lauren. Brushandre tells her to calm down. They go back and forth and blah, blah, and Tariq and blah, blah. And Brushandre tells her she needs to get into this. Is that weed? Lauren says, and she's like, I have internship interviews, and she's going on, and she's so uptight, and I can relate. Oh, Lauren. So Diana meets with Tariq, and she wants him to get her an appointment with Davis. He gets a call, but he tells her, listen, I got you. So it's Tate. He's found an address, and Tariq has an hour to get there. So Lauren runs into Diana in the stairwell, and she's not pleased. So they get into it. He says, come with me, please. I want to show you what I've been doing the whole time, because she was about to just totally chew him out. So Monet's ass is on a helicopter with Mecca. She's never done anything like this before. Monet ain't never been nowhere, and she's impressed yet again. Zeke leaves her a message, and her and Mecca kiss. So Tariq takes Lauren with him to go see Yaz. She's happy to see him. He asks, he says he has a teddy for her. He introduces her to Lauren. He wants to know, what's good. He tells her she can come home soon and stay with him. And he says he has Lauren go run interference so he can tell Yaz that there's a phone in the teddy so she can call him at any time. Now, what I would like to know is, how is he going to go to school in the canonical studies program, sell drugs, and raise a child? Anybody want to tell me that? Okay. How is he going to get her back and forth to school, help her with her homework? All these things that you have to do. I mean, it sounds cute, but Tariq has too much on his plate already, okay? So back in Lauren's room, she is happy. He took her to see what's going on with his sister, and they got this poor character so thirsty, poor Lauren. So they kiss, and the clothes start coming off. It's hot and heavy, but he asks if she's sure, and we appreciate the consent, and they're off. When Monet gets off the helicopter, she gets the message that Zeke left. She's got to go, and that fur vest and that Fendi jacket she had on was bad, okay? So laying in the afterglow, Tariq's phone goes off, and he sees the video of Zeke. He hops up, and he's explaining to Lauren that if anything happens to Zeke, he's out of here. She's like, it doesn't make any sense. He has no time to explain. He apologizes. He's got to go. He calls Davis. So Zeke asks to call someone, and then he tells him he has a PBA card in his wallet. It's Ramirez's, and he's done it now. Monet comes to the station asking for Zeke. She's his guardian. You can't hold him. She's cussing folks out. She's storming through the police station. So unrealistic. While Kevin interrogates Zeke now about Ramirez. Now you're doing some police work at least. So she finds him and tells him, let's go. Detective Kevin is cussing at her, and she says, if he ain't being charged, basically they're out. So Davis comes to help, and she's like, Monet is like, your client? Who the F hired you? So a few words are said, and she's like, we don't need a criminal lawyer, and she tries to breeze past him. He's like, listen, when I got here, there's reporters lined up outside. They will eat him alive. Use the back door, and I will handle the press. So Detective Kevin, I just want to, and Monet stops him. You are about to lose your job. So Davis gives a statement on Zeke out front, on his behalf. He's just a good citizen looking to help the police. You know how he do. Okay. So in the car, she asks if he's okay. Monet asks Zeke, and he tells her about Carrie, and they think the two of them has something to do with Jabari's murder. The professor bitch, I told you to stop effing. So he's like, I did. But she was with Jabari, and Monet's like, you're on your way to the NBA, and you're out here caught up in some community. So he says he didn't say anything. He didn't know what to do. And he gave them Ramirez's PBA card. She loses it. Then he loses it. And they are doing this poor actor wrong, because when he lost it, it was like, and it looked like poor Mary, she probably had so many takes not to laugh in that scene. And he's asking, like, what are you getting me into? So she's like, listen, I promise to make it right. So Brayden meets up with Kane, who calls him a delivery boy. Tell your boss nice work. He and Tariq are partners, and Brayden is short. Kane's like, run the streets with me. He's like, we're not diversifying right now. And that Weston business acumen is in him, whether he likes it or not. Boss's order, Kane says, trying to cause division. So he tells him to get into it with me tonight. And Brayden gets into the car. And then Kane gets a message from Monet, so now he's got to go. He tells Brayden to get out. He tells him, listen, you can leave the bag with me. And, basically when he gets to it, he'll turn it, flip that money, do what it do. Brayden says he can't do that, but ultimately he ends up giving Kane the bag. Tomorrow by 10 a.m., he says. Wow, Brayden, just wow. So Monet is not happy with Kane, and they're all at the house. And after she chews him out and leaves the room, he asks Drew and Diana, like, y'all so smart. Why you didn't tell him to use the PBA card? He's like, listen, Monet gave it to him. She forgot to take it back. He's like, oh, so that's my fault. And it's a whole bunch of blah blah blah. But what Diana wants to know is where Monet was when this phone call situation came in. So Tariq opens his door and Kane punches him square in the face. Tariq bounced back up like one of those kids, like boxing bullies. Child, he tells them, oh, that's your plan to have have Zeke go down is whack. He's like, he didn't know Zeke was sleeping with Carrie. Okay. He's like, I sent Davis to handle it. Kane tells him, Zeke dropped the PBA card. They're both like, so Kane is worried Zeke will go down for both, but he's like, oh, no. But you gonna be the one to go down for it. We not gonna do this to Zeke. So Tariq tries to assure him he got this. Kane leaves. Tariq is in oh my God, in a tizzy. He don't know what to do. Diana meets with Davis and Saxe, and Davis tells her family has some of the best lawyers, and sometimes there's no way out. Saxe co-signs because he doesn't want to take the case, and Davis assures him, assures her we'll remain vigilant and we'll reach out if we could be of any service. And Diana's like, listen, basically her mom doesn't need to know. He's like, because he says, I'll reach out to you or your mom. She's like, nah, she doesn't need to know. And then after she leaves, Saxe says, it was a lose-lose. And he didn't want no parts. And Davis is like, that could have been a repeat customer. What's in our best interest? So Kane shows up by the hair of his chinny chin chin with the money for Brayden and some honeys. He tries to entice Brayden to join him, but Brayden's got business to attend to. So he gives one of the girls some money and drops his name. He's like, I think I'm in love already. And Kane clowns him as he pulls off. So Saxe and Prosecutor Jenny, they're all laid out, and she doesn't have anywhere to be this time. So it's pillow talk with actual pillows. He tells her about turning down the Tejada appeal, and she's like, oh, I remember him. And she mentions the guy that was on the case. And Saxe like, oh, I heard Griffith got fired for tampering with evidence or stealing drugs from the evidence locker. She's like, yes, but he did a fantastic job of putting away monsters like Tejada. So while she's in the bathroom, he texts Davis, we can get Lorenzo out of prison. And the fun's about to begin. So Brayden, he meets up with Tariq with the money for Bash. I'm in, I got you, bro. He asks Tariq again about diversifying to the streets, and Tariq answers with an attitude. They're not effing with Kane. They're going to pick up the product like they've been doing and continue doing business as usual. Bash comes in and Brayden signs on the dotted line, and that is where we end. And I wondered if there was nobody else that Tariq could have signed the papers. I mean, I guess it could be good because it could possibly fall on Brayden, but they're pretty tightly connected. But now we have Brayden in a power position, so this could affect their relationship big time. If you have made it this far, drop a money emoji in the comments. Thank you for stopping by. Episode 4 is already out, so keep those notifications on for that upload. Please leave all your questions, comments, thoughts in the comment section. While you're here, please check out some of my other content. Thank you. And before you go, like, subscribe, and share. I appreciate you. Peace.